Every quarter you've ever spent could be worth far more than just 25 cents. Some quarters have a story to tell, of rarity, minting errors, and collectors willing to pay top dollar. These aren't your everyday pocket change, they're treasures that could change your financial future. In a world increasingly driven by digital transactions and virtual payments, the simple act of holding a coin can feel oddly nostalgic, like flipping through an old photo album or unfolding a handwritten letter. It's tactile. It's real. And in some cases, it's remarkably valuable. This is the story of one such coin, the 2022 USA quarter dollar, a coin born not just of metal and minting presses, but of legacy, transformation, and unexpected fortune. To understand the gravity of this coin's journey, we need to look back. Far back. The quarter dollar has long served as a mirror of America's identity. From the early draped bust design of the 18th century to the legendary Standing Liberty in the early 1900s, these coins have been more than currency, they've been icons, touched by millions, carrying stories in their tiny, silvery frames. The modern Washington quarter debuted in 1932 to commemorate the 200th anniversary of George Washington's birth. What began as a one-time tribute soon became a standard in American pockets. And for decades, the design barely changed. Washington's resolute profile on the obverse stood as a symbol of leadership and stability, while the reverse, once featuring an eagle, later became a rotating tribute to the 50 states, U.S. territories, national parks, and more. By 2022, however, the coin was ready for a new chapter. This chapter would spotlight voices that had too often gone unheard, stories that had waited far too long to be told. Thus, the American Women Quarters program was born, ushering in a new era of design, representation, and collector enthusiasm. The very first coin in this series bore the likeness of Maya Angelou. A poet. A memoirist. A force of wisdom and humanity. Her work touched millions, and her presence on the coin was no less impactful. The design features her with outstretched arms, lifting not just herself, but everyone who reads her words. The rising sun behind her, the soaring bird, everything about it sings of transcendence, of voice, of becoming. Soon after came the quarter honoring Dr. Sally Ride. Her name is etched into the stars as the first American woman in space, a woman who looked down at Earth not just as an astronaut, but as a physicist, a teacher, and a mentor. Her coin shows her in thoughtful repose beside the window of a space shuttle, a scene both intimate and vast. It's a quiet reminder of how one person's dream can carry the weight of a nation's aspirations. Then came Wilma Mankiller. Principal Chief of the Cherokee Nation. Activist. Leader. Her story is one of resilience and revival. The coin honoring her captures both her strength and the continuity of her culture. With the seven-pointed star of the Cherokee Nation shining beside her, the design says plainly, identity endures. Pride endures. The fourth figure, Nina Otero Warren, wasn't just a trailblazer in education and politics. She fought for bilingual voting materials, ensuring that Hispanic communities in New Mexico had a voice. Her coin does not shout, but it speaks volumes. Voto para la mujer is more than a phrase, it's a call, an echo of courage that continues to ripple through generations. Finally, the fifth coin of that groundbreaking year paid tribute to Anna May Wong. Her gaze, half thoughtful, half daring, seems to see into the future she helped pave. She battled stereotypes and broke through barriers in a Hollywood that wasn't built for her, yet she shone nonetheless. The coin, featuring her iconic pose with a hand resting against her cheek, is not just glamorous, it's powerful. Each of these coins tells its own story, but they also belong to a larger narrative, a new vision of what American heroes look like. And for collectors, that meant something huge. These weren't just artistic novelties, they were potential treasures. As the quarters began to circulate, collectors were already on the hunt. Some focused on mint marks, P for Philadelphia, D for Denver, S for San Francisco, while others were chasing pristine condition coins straight from uncirculated rolls. But then, something unexpected happened. A few coins began to surface with strange features, imperfections, anomalies, errors. And suddenly, the game changed. One particular Sally Ride quarter caught people's attention. At first glance, it seemed normal. But on closer inspection, there it was, a fine, raised line that wasn't supposed to be there. A die crack. What had happened during the minting process was something rare. A flaw in the die caused a line to form on the surface of the coin, giving it a unique look. These cracks, sometimes called cuds or retained die breaks, are the numismatic equivalent of birthmarks. And the rarer they are, the more valuable they become. Die cracks form under intense pressure. In a high-speed minting environment, the dies, those hardened pieces of metal used to strike the coin's design, can suffer from fatigue or fracture. The result is a raised feature where there should be none. In this case, the crack ran through part of the obverse design, creating an unmistakable distinction. Word spread. Collectors scoured their coins, hoping to find that same mark. The frenzy began. Online auctions lit up. Coin forums buzzed. And as the scarcity of these error coins became evident, so did their value. What makes this particular quarter, the Sally Ride error coin, so remarkable isn't just the die crack. It's the combination of factors: the historical importance of the figure, the limited window of circulation, the precision of the error, and the pristine condition in which one specific specimen was found. It became the gold standard for modern quarter errors. The perfect storm of rarity, story, and symbolism. Over time, it passed from collector to collector. Each time, its value rose. What started as a curiosity became a prize. Then a trophy. Then, finally, a legend. And today, that same coin, just $1/4 coin from 2022, is valued at $16,000. Not because of its gold content. Not because it was encrusted in diamonds. But because it is unique. Because it tells a story that only it can tell. Because it exists at the intersection of history, human achievement, and the unrepeatable accidents of minting machinery, and maybe, just maybe, there are more out there. Unfound. Untouched. Sitting quietly in a piggy bank or coin roll. Waiting for the right pair of eyes to see them for what they are, tiny miracles of metal, history, and chance. So the next time you hold a quarter in your hand, don't just glance and toss it in your pocket. Turn it over. Look closely. Because that ordinary coin might just be worth more than its weight in silver. It might just be your ticket into the incredible world of numismatic discovery. Up next, the 1998 USA quarter dollar. It's the type of coin you've probably seen countless times, tossed in a tip jar, used for parking meters, or maybe resting at the bottom of your pocket. It's ordinary in every sense of the word. But what if I told you that this seemingly simple quarter holds a story that will make you look at your change in a completely different way? Let's take a moment to rewind, back to 1998. The United States was on the cusp of the millennium, and life was changing rapidly. The internet was becoming a household necessity, Y2K fears were creeping into everyone's minds, and the country was gearing up for something monumental: the 50-state quarters program. That program, which would debut the following year, would forever alter the way Americans viewed their coins. But in 1998, before that monumental shift in coinage, one last batch of the classic Washington quarters was struck, the final year of the eagle design that had been used since 1932. Most of the quarters produced in 1998 were like any other, mass-produced and distributed throughout the country. Millions of these coins passed from hand to hand, slipping into everyday transactions with little notice or fanfare. They were part of the familiar rhythm of life. But there was something else happening in the background, something most people would never have noticed. Somewhere within that mountain of quarters, an anomaly slipped through the cracks. A minting error, so subtle that most wouldn't have realized what they were holding. At first, it didn't seem like much of a big deal, a coin that was just a little bit different from the others. But to collectors, these small variations can mean everything. They have the power to transform an ordinary coin into something extraordinary. It started with the first reports. A handful of collectors noticed a curious 1998 quarter. It looked normal enough at first, but it felt different in the hand. Maybe it was a little lighter. Maybe it had an odd sheen to it. Upon closer inspection, they realized that something was off with the coin's weight and composition. It was struck on the wrong type of planchet, the flat metal disc that's stamped to create the coin. This coin had been struck on a planchet meant for a different denomination, potentially one of a smaller coin. It was an error, yes, but one that was rare and special, far from the usual mistakes you might find in change. At first, it seemed like just another quirky mint error. But over time, more coins with similar issues began to surface. They weren't all the same, but they shared something in common, a tiny flaw in the minting process that made them just a little bit different. While most errors were subtle and would have been discarded or overlooked, these stood out. What made this 1998 quarter particularly unique, however, wasn't just the error. It was the combination of factors. The coin's condition was impeccable, unlike most that might have been damaged in circulation. It was pristine, a mint-state coin with all of its intricate details still sharply defined. And for those who knew how to spot it, there was something almost magical about it. This was a coin that should never have existed in the form it did, and yet, there it was, a rare gem hiding in plain sight. This particular quarter made its way to a few expert hands, collectors who knew just how significant it was. The buzz around it began to grow. The word spread like wildfire. Experts examined it, graded it, and slowly, they came to realize that what they were looking at was no ordinary coin, it was a once-in-a-lifetime error. Something that could change the way people thought about modern coinage. As the coin changed hands, it was submitted for further verification and professional grading. The details were examined under high-powered magnification. The error was confirmed, a stunning example of a minting anomaly that had happened by chance. But more than that, it was in remarkable condition, free from the wear and tear that would typically degrade coins over time. The more collectors saw it, the more they realized how special it was. Then came the big moment. This extraordinary quarter found its way to auction, and the numismatic world held its breath. It wasn't just another coin sale, it was the discovery of a piece of history. The bidding was fierce. Phone lines lit up, bids were placed online, and everyone who had been watching knew that they were witnessing something rare. This was the type of coin that collectors dream about, a coin that most people would have overlooked, dismissed, or even spent, now going up for grabs in front of an audience of eager buyers. The auction room was filled with tension as the price climbed higher and higher. Everyone knew that this quarter, this seemingly ordinary piece of change, was about to become something far more valuable. What started as a simple error had evolved into a coin worth far more than face value, and then, with a final, breathtaking moment of anticipation, the gavel came down. The 1998 quarter had sold. But what had it sold for? How much was a quarter worth if it had such a rare and perfect flaw? You might be wondering just how much this coin fetched. You'd be surprised, and that's why the story of this 1998 quarter is so incredible. It sold for $76,000. A quarter. 25 cents. It had become far more than just money, it had become a symbol of the unpredictability of coin collecting, the unexpected treasure that could be hiding in the most unlikely places. So next time you come across a coin that seems ordinary, take a moment to pause and look closer. Maybe it's just a simple piece of currency. Or maybe, just maybe, it's the next great discovery, waiting for the right eyes to spot it, because in the world of numismatics, a simple mistake can lead to an incredible find. And for this 1998 quarter, that's exactly what happened. One moment, it was just a coin. The next, it was worth a fortune. Up next, the 1983 USA quarter dollar. It's a coin most of us have seen countless times, used in daily transactions without a second thought. A quarter is a quarter, right? Toss it in a tip jar, drop it into a vending machine, or hand it over at the grocery store, it's an everyday part of life. But in the world of coin collecting, some of these simple pieces of currency hold extraordinary stories. And one quarter in particular, from 1983, has become legendary in the numismatic world for its unexpected value and the rarity of its existence. Let's take a step back to 1983. The United States was in the midst of significant change, both politically and economically. Ronald Reagan was in office, the Cold War was still looming, and Americans were beginning to see the effects of rising inflation. But what most people didn't know at the time was that a small mistake made during the minting process would one day give rise to a coin that would be worth far more than the simple 25 cents it was intended to represent. In 1983, the U.S. Mint was busy churning out quarters as part of the regular coinage production. The United States was in the middle of transitioning to a more modern era of coinage. But something happened that year that set the 1983 quarter apart from its counterparts. A small, but significant error occurred. and as is often the case with rare coins, this mistake would soon become one of the most sought-after coins by collectors. Most quarters that were minted in 1983 followed the usual process. They were produced in large quantities and distributed across the country, used in everyday transactions. But buried within those millions of coins was an anomaly. A tiny fraction of the 1983 quarters were produced with an error that would go on to make them highly desirable. These were the coins that, instead of being struck on the usual planchets, the blank metal discs used in the minting process, were mistakenly struck on planchets meant for another coin, a smaller one. This seemingly insignificant error resulted in a slightly thinner and lighter coin, one that did not meet the usual specifications for a quarter. But why did this matter? It matters because coins like these are extremely rare, and in the world of collectors, rarity is everything. The minute details of this mistake, the incorrect metal planchet and the resulting size difference, made the 1983 quarter an exceptional find for those who knew what to look for. While most people wouldn't notice anything out of the ordinary, experts and collectors soon realized they were looking at something special. Coin collectors are no strangers to mint errors. After all, some of the most valuable coins in history were once dismissed as mistakes, and that's exactly what made them so coveted. It's the story behind these rare errors, the process of discovery, and the unique characteristics that set a coin apart from the millions of others that were produced in the same year. The 1983 quarter error was no different. After it was first discovered, collectors began to seek out these misprints from 1983. At first, only a few individuals knew about this rare anomaly, but word spread like wildfire through the numismatic community. Soon, these unique 1983 quarters, with their distinct features, were in high demand. What was once seen as an oversight in the minting process turned into a prized gem, a coin that collectors would fight for. So, how did these 1983 quarters make their way to the world of serious collectors? It wasn't until a few years later, when a particularly well-preserved example of this rare coin appeared at auction, that people truly began to understand just how valuable these coins had become. The combination of a historical error, a coin struck on the wrong planchet, and the sheer rarity of the find made it an incredible piece of numismatic history. When it was first listed for sale, the coin created a frenzy. Bidders came from all over the world, eager to add this exceptional quarter to their collections. The auction was intense, with the price climbing steadily as more and more collectors realized the true value of this unique piece of American history. Each bid added to the excitement as the final price approached uncharted territory. A coin that was originally worth just 25 cents was now in the midst of a heated bidding war. What made the 1983 quarter even more intriguing was its near-mint condition. While most coins that have circulated for years tend to show signs of wear and tear, this particular coin had been preserved in perfect condition. Its edges were sharp, its details crisp, and the error that made it so special was unmistakable. This pristine coin, coupled with the rarity of the minting mistake, made it one of the most sought-after pieces in modern numismatics. The 1983 quarter wasn't just a valuable coin because of its mistake. It was also a reflection of the broader world of coin collecting, the pursuit of rare, unique pieces that tell a story. Each coin carries with it a history, a process, and sometimes even a bit of luck. And for this 1983 quarter, it was that combination of rarity, condition, and the fascinating tale of how it was made that made it one of the most intriguing coins in the world. As the bidding war finally drew to a close, the final price left everyone in shock. This rare and beautifully preserved 1983 quarter had sold for an astonishing sum. It wasn't just a coin anymore, it had become a symbol of the fascination, excitement, and history that surrounds the world of numismatics. And the value of this particular coin? $114,000. A quarter. 25 cents. It was a stunning reminder that in the world of coins, even the most ordinary pieces can sometimes become extraordinary treasures. So, the next time you come across a 1983 quarter, take a moment to appreciate it. You never know what might be hidden in plain sight. Because in the world of coin collecting, the story behind a coin can sometimes make it worth far more than its face value. The 1983 quarter is just one example of how the world of numismatics has the power to turn everyday objects into valuable treasures. Who knows, your next quarter might just be the next big discovery. Up next, the most valuable and rare, the 1981 USA quarter dollar. To most people, a quarter is just another coin, a simple tool used in everyday transactions, nothing more than pocket change or the occasional toll fee. But behind this seemingly mundane coin lies a fascinating story of error, rarity, and an astronomical rise in value that will make you rethink what's hiding in your pocket. Let's rewind to 1981, a time when the United States was in the midst of political, social, and economic change. Ronald Reagan had recently taken office, and the country was in the midst of a challenging economic era with high inflation and unemployment rates. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, the Cold War was still very much a reality. But as history was unfolding across the globe, the U.S. Mint was quietly producing millions of quarters that would eventually find their way into circulation. Little did anyone know, one small mistake at the Mint would lead to the creation of one of the most valuable coins in U.S. history. The 1981 quarter featured the iconic image of George Washington, designed by John Flanagan back in 1932. This design had been a symbol of the country's enduring strength and unity for decades. For most people, this quarter was just another piece of currency, used to make small purchases, tossed into change jars, or forgotten at the bottom of purses and pockets. But there was something extraordinary about a small number of these quarters, something that made them stand out from the rest. These were the 1981 quarters with a minting error that would go on to be worth far more than anyone could have anticipated. Here's where the story takes a twist. The minting process, despite the technological precision behind it, isn't immune to errors. As with any complex manufacturing process, sometimes things go wrong. And in 1981, something did. Some of the quarters were mistakenly struck on planchets, the flat metal discs used to make coins, that were meant for a different denomination. This small mix-up caused the quarters to be slightly thinner or slightly different in their composition compared to the regular ones. At first glance, these errors were almost imperceptible. They looked like any other quarter, the same size and weight, with Washington's face proudly displayed on the front. But to a seasoned collector or numismatist, there was something off. Something special. It was the type of subtle anomaly that made collectors pause and take notice. They were no longer just coins in circulation, they had become a piece of history, a rare mistake that no one had planned for. Most of these special 1981 quarters circulated through the economy like any other coin, gradually worn down and losing much of their original crisp details. But the ones that were well preserved became increasingly sought after. Over the years, as collectors began to recognize the value of these era coins, the demand for them grew. It wasn't just about owning a 1981 quarter anymore. It was about owning a rare treasure, a coin that shouldn't have existed the way it did. What made these era quarters particularly appealing was their rarity and condition. In the world of coin collecting, condition is paramount. The more worn a coin is, the less valuable it becomes. However, these special 1981 quarters, struck with the minting error, were found in near-perfect condition. And when you add rarity into the mix, you have a formula for something truly extraordinary. As time passed, the value of these era coins soared, but just because a coin is rare doesn't mean it's automatically valuable. So what made the 1981 quarter even more special? It's the way it caught the attention of the numismatic community. Coins with errors often go unnoticed, circulating freely through the economy without anyone giving them a second glance. But this specific 1981 quarter, had a destiny. It was the type of coin that would draw in the passionate collectors who could see its true worth. The story of the 1981 quarter went from a quiet curiosity to a sensation in the numismatic world. Word spread, and collectors began to hunt for these rare coins, eager to add them to their collections. This wasn't just about owning any 1981 quarter, it was about finding the perfect one with the minting error still clearly visible, and preferably in pristine condition. The rarity of these coins combined with their fascinating history and unique story made them coveted by even the most seasoned collectors. Then came the moment that changed everything. A particularly well-preserved 1981 quarter, featuring the minting error, appeared at auction. This wasn't just another coin being sold in a numismatic auction, it was the kind of coin that collectors dream of finding. It was rare, it was historic, and it was in nearly perfect condition. The excitement around this coin was palpable. Enthusiasts from around the world were eagerly awaiting the chance to own it, and as the auction date neared, the buzz grew louder. When the auction began, there was an air of anticipation. The bidding started modestly enough, but everyone knew this coin was something special. It wasn't just a matter of wanting a piece of history, it was about securing a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. As the bids continued to rise, the room grew tense with excitement. The price climbed steadily, and with each bid, the stakes grew higher. At one point, the bidding reached a fever pitch. The auctioneer's voice grew louder, the gavel poised to strike. The energy in the room was electric. It was a coin collector's dream, the kind of auction you could only experience once in a lifetime. The auction was not just about a coin, it was about owning a rare piece of American history. The bids continued to soar, and as the final bid came in, everyone held their breath. The hammer fell, and the 1981 quarter was sold to the highest bidder. The coin that had started as a simple quarter, worth just 25 cents, had now become a symbol of rarity, history, and numismatic value. The final price was one that would make anyone's jaw drop: $119,000. It's hard to believe, but this is the reality in the world of rare coins. What seemed like an ordinary, everyday object had turned into a prized treasure, worth far more than its face value. The 1981 quarter with a minting error has become a symbol of how small, seemingly insignificant mistakes can turn into extraordinary pieces of history, sought after by collectors who recognize their true value. So, the next time you reach into your pocket and pull out a handful of change, take a closer look. You never know what's hiding in the bottom of that jar or tucked away in your wallet. Maybe you'll hold the next big find, a coin that could change your life, just like the 1981 quarter did for its lucky new owner. Don't overlook what might seem ordinary, because in the world of numismatics, even the smallest of details can lead to a treasure trove of riches.